think a big piece is like, so when we talk about obedience, and so going back to my third year in Milligan, yeah, my third year, when I decided to finally redshirt, I like struggled. Like I got through my last 2 years, but again, like it was an actual really struggle for me because couldn't play basketball. Was hurt. I was feeling called to do something that I genuinely thought I was not supposed to be doing. And it was one of those things where I was like, all right, okay, God, like we're gonna trust you in this. And once I graduated from Milligan and kind of trained full time, it was like not an immediate, I guess, blow up of a success. So I knew I was supposed to train. I knew I was supposed to do that. This was before the company even like kind of the LLC even happened, but I knew I was supposed to train. It happened over COVID, and I had a really good, successful COVID with training, and so I just knew that that's what I was supposed to be doing. And then COVID stopped. Stopped, I guess. I mean, like, we weren't quarantined or required to wear a mask or anything like that anymore. And I just kept going to training. And I went to school, got my master's at ETSU, got my master's in sport management. But, like, those years were, like, really, really actually dark for me. So people were like, okay, you train, like, you must make a ton of money, like, you must, like, you know, I'm trying to put out and portray to God, to people, like, hey, God always provides, you know, Jesus is always there, which are all true things, but for me, it got to a point of where, like, money, like, was the reason I did things. I would say money is the root of all evil, and, like, I was serving. For me, like, I recognized that I, like, was serving. I just switched what I was serving. I went from serving basketball. Then I thought I was doing something to serve God, and turns out I went from serving God to serving money. And they always say you can't serve God and money at the same time. And I struggled a lot because, you know, graduating from and going into my master's, like, that was the first time I had my own apartment, pay my own bills, like, you know, a lot of that was, so it was adulthood for me, which came and kind of hit me in the face. So now it was a time where I didn't have a ton of money. I felt like, you know, I trained a lot. I drove. This is me. I'm driving to Knoxville and back, Seymour and back. I'm driving 2-3 hours to train kids and to make money. You know, trying to train in the area as much as I could. And it got to a point where I was, like, really struggling. Like, I didn't have the money. Or it's like I felt like any money I had was automatically being put out toward a bill or being spent doing something. And so for me, it was constantly like, I constantly had to, like, I felt like I always had to be looking over my shoulder, like, and it got to a point where I was so worried. And, you know, God tells us, you know, like, you gotta have faith, you know, as big as a mustard seed, and how, you know, like, does, you know, how God, you know, he feeds, you know, the birds and everything. He clothes them. He does everything, and everything works and perfectly. And, you know, like, I shouldn't be worried. Like, he doesn't call us to worry, you know. And he says, come all who are weary to come to him. And I try to be as independent as I can, and I'm a very, very, very big on the fact that when people tell me, hey, like, you know, if a problem happens, I'm not really likely to ask people for help. But I got to a point so bad where, like, I was not eating. Like, I was sacrificing meals to make sure I didn't spend money. I was sacrificing, like, I wouldn't go out. I would, like, literally, I was just kind of harbor money and not want to spend anything. I didn't want to get groceries because I didn't want to spend money on meals. Like, there was days I was just skipping meals, and because I would constantly check my bank account. It got to the point where I was like, I feel like I was checking my bank account more than my Bible app. I mean, it's like I'd open my phone up and the first thing I'd do is check my bank account and see like what money has been come out and all this kind of stuff. And I feel like I was just in a very, very just really, really tough place with that. And like I would worry all the time that I was not going to have what I needed. I would worry all the time like that I was not going to be taken care of. I'd worry all the time that if I wasn't working or if I didn't say no to working, like I was working, like I wasn't just training. I mean, I was working like 4 or 5 jobs, like side jobs. Everybody would always see me, are you getting rest? Like, and of course I'd put on a smile. I'd say, yeah. I was like, yeah, I'm getting some rest. I wasn't getting any rest. I would always say that I was going to be, anytime someone asked me to do something, I would just, I would say yes if it meant I was making some money. It's like it took the genuineness out of anything I did, because it was like me. I feel like I was always on survival mode, and always feel like, okay, I've got this bill, I've got my credit card bill, I've got all these different bills on top of that, and then always trying to make sure I have payments, and always making sure I'm not late, always making sure like I shared rent at that time, but like it was like making sure that I'm never late on my payments, and it was a very stressful time for me, because like I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't getting enough sleep, I was getting up early in the morning to go work in whatever job I was doing, and then getting back super late, sleep a little bit, but then like wouldn't feel like eating, and so basically I was just like, it wasn't like and my mom would always get on to me at these times. She's like, "Dude, you have to eat." Those were like the non-negotiables for her. Like, you have to eat, you have to do this, you have to do this. And like, of course, which should have been, and it should have been a non-negotiable for me. Like, I should have always made sure I ate something. But for me, I was just like, okay, if I spend money on this, or if I eat this, or if I grab this to eat, or if I go grocery shopping, if I do anything of that nature, like, I'm not gonna have the money that I need to pay my bills. And which was not the case at all. I mean, it really was like, me working as much as I did, it should have been, hey, like, if you don't take care of yourself, like, you're not gonna be able to go at the rate and speed that you want to go at, which was honestly I had a lot of like what we call crash outs now. I guess I had a lot of crash outs. I had a lot of, my body was just feeling weak. I had a lot of times where I just did not, I wasn't fueled. And so at that time, like, I wasn't fueled like physically or spiritually. It was just like everybody always tell me you can't pour out of an empty bucket, but I declare I was trying to scrape the bottom of my bucket and give people like whatever paint chips or whatever was coming out of my bucket. Like, I guess I tried to make an empty bucket work, and God quickly showed me that was not how this was going to go. Like, I couldn't make an empty bucket work. That was not how it was supposed to go. I wasn't even half full. I was constantly, it was a time where I was just pouring and pouring and pouring, and I would sacrifice money to make sure other people had what they need. I was like, I'm always the type of person that, like, I'll give you the shirt off my back. Like, I mean, if that's like, if I don't have anything else, I'll give you the shirt off my back. If you need something, well, and I have a little bit of extra money, but maybe I need to eat that day, I'm more likely to give you the extra money to make sure you have what you need. And so I very, very quickly like came into a hole, and it was like a very, very, very distinct time for me. And so that's why I love The Chosen. And so the scene where it's like the direct scene of where, Peter, and at the time, Simon, but Peter is calling out to God, like I mentioned earlier. And like in that scene, he's like, Peter gets out of the boat and he walks and he keeps his focus on God, and as soon as his focus goes off God, he slips through the water. And my favorite scene is you see Jesus reach his hand down in the water, and you see it connect with Peter's, and he pulls Peter out of the water, and he holds Peter like it's like his child. Like, he doesn't berate him, he doesn't, but he does say like, how do you have like so little faith? And Peter, like, while he's on the boat, he's arguing with God arguing with Jesus, because he's like, like, you're healing all these other people, like, I'm your person too. Like, why are you like why? When I think we get on this, it's like, why is this happening to me? Like, why? Like, I'm right here with you, Jesus. Like, why is this all happening? And it was a moment where I was like, wait a minute, like, it was a moment for me where it was like, that moment was me when I knew that I was in such a deep, like, hole. And that was I felt like when I was at my deepest, like, that was when my car got broken into. And completely, I mean, it just wasn't smart. I had things in there I shouldn't have had in there, and, you know, car got broken into. I had been saving money, so that was all taken. Like, I had electronics in there, like, that was all taken. And, like, how I found out about that was I got an email saying that my wallet was found at ETSU, and I was like, wait a minute. Like, I was like, what do you mean my wallet? Because I normally would just get up and go, so sometimes I just leave my wallet. And, like, again, not smart. Highly don't recommend that. But, like, it happened. And so I go through, I'm like, what are you, like, I was, like, so confused. So, yeah, it's got to be somebody else. So at the apartment we were at, like, there was a top layer and then there was a bottom layer, and, like, top parking lot and there was a bottom parking lot. So I had to park in the bottom parking lot because, like, parking was just terrible at that place. But I had to park in the bottom parking lot, and parked in the bottom parking lot, and I go out there and I just see my door just flung open. To this day, like, there's marks on, like, my car window, like, of, like, where people were trying to scratch through it, and, like, to this day, like, you could see the indentions where they were trying to do that. And, like, my back window, they busted it out, like, absolutely busted it out. And they busted the window and it, like, shattered everywhere. And so, like, it was, like, one of those things of, like, okay, like, what are we doing here? And with it shattering, it was one of those things of, like, all right, like, I really anyways, but it was one of those things where, like, I called the police, and I just start crying. Like, I see it, I go run up to my dorm, or not my dorm, excuse me, I go run up to my apartment, and tears out my eyes, and police officer gets there. My wallet was found there, but then, like, for the next few days, which was interesting, you'd find my cards throughout campus. Like, my cards, like, they didn't take my debit card, they didn't take any of that, but, like, you'd find, like, random cards with my name, my ID, all that kind of stuff, just flung out across campus. I had people at random, like, professors, like, emailing me and was like, hey, we found your ID, we found this, and, like, so to this day, I don't know, like, I don't know what caused that, I don't know I don't know, but I knew that was one of the first times in my life that I was, like, absolutely crushed. Or I would always probably say that's probably one of my first heartbreaks. I had worked so hard, and I had saved money, and I was literally, like, working my tail off, and I get to the point, and I'm like, the police officer, he comes, he leaves, and when he leaves, like, you know, of course, was a report made? Yes. Was there actually, like, traction on the report? No. So to this day, I have no idea. Never gotten anything back. But I dropped to my knees when he leaves, and I remember I said, what do you want from me? Like, that was the first question I asked God. I was like, what do you want from me? I was like, in my head, I was like, which was all completely different, because when I was in high school, like, I thought I was a good person, so I was like, okay, I'm going to heaven, and, like, no, but now I'm, like, in the trenches, like, really trying to serve God and all this kind of stuff, and I'm like, what do you want from me? Like, what else do I have? Like, I was like, everything I feel at that time was just ripped away from me, and I was like, what else do I have that you want from me? And I constantly asked God why. I was like, why? I was like, why? I was like, I'm out here serving. I'm out here trying to be as obedient. I'm out here, you know, barely scraping by, knowing I don't really have as much money. Like, I'm out here really struggling. And God's like, and the answer to my question was me. I spent all this time worried about money. I spent all this time, like, trying to, like, you know, find out ways for me to provide for myself when all God wanted was me. And I think that's one of the biggest revelations that I've ever had in my life, because it's like, yeah, God wanted me, and then it was a matter of, I was trying to be obedient, but I wasn't surrendering. And I wasn't surrendering in a way of where God could actually work through me as much as he wanted, and not because it was like I was trying to grasp onto things, and I was trying to hold on to things and hold on to the fact that like I felt like I needed to do whatever I could to make sure I could survive every day and live, even if I wasn't living to such a great high standard of eating every day and sleeping and doing all this types of stuff. And so when I tell you I was exhausted, I was absolutely exhausted. After the cop came, I called my mom. She drove up next day. Like we got my window fixed and stuff. My dad, like, at first was not super happy to hear about it, and you know, like, and it just. Since then, I learned a couple of things about myself. The first thing, when I got back after the cop left, I went into my room and I just fell on the floor. It's like one of those feelings of like you're so exhausted, like I just fell on the floor. It's just like everything gave out, like I could not do it. I didn't want to do it anymore. I didn't want to have to like stress myself out. Like I was contemplating, I was like, am I even supposed to be in Tennessee? Am I supposed to be doing this? Do I need to go back home? Like what? Like I had no idea. And the next day, my mom said, hey, you should put that on Facebook. And I was like, I'm the type of person, again, I'm independent. I don't like to put my business out there like that. I didn't think that everybody needed to know that. But that was the one time I decided to share. And when I tell you the return I got back, like people were sending, you know, money and stuff. I had enough to replace everything I had enough to replace what I lost. And then I had surplus on that. Like, when I tell you that was my moment where I felt like I was drowning, and like Jesus pulled me out of the water and held me, and he was just like, why do you doubt? It was one of those moments, because it was like, to this day, I've never missed a bill. To this day, I've never been late. To this day, everything's always been taken care of. And I'm finally in the position where I actually get to eat 3 meals a day. Like, and like, I have time to do that, and like I don't have to worry about stressed out about so much, like that I was so stressed out. I don't have to work 4 or 5 jobs anymore. I don't have to do any of that. And it was like, why do you have so little doubt? And for me, it was like God was like, here, like when you struggle and sometimes there's like no light at the end of the tunnel. You just don't see it, and you're just like, I don't understand what I'm going through. I don't understand why I'm going through it. I don't understand where God's like, why it feels like he's taking things away from me. Like I was like, I don't understand that. And for me, like in that moment, God showed up, and it was a moment that I'll never forget, because to this day I can always think back on that. And like earlier, like we kind of mentioned, like, and I have courage in that. I have courage in knowing that I'm always going to be taken care of. I'm always like, you know, when we grew up, I didn't grow up, you know, we didn't have, you know, like, we didn't have a lot of money. We didn't have, like, you know, like, we were not rich or anything. I mean, like, but we never went without. And there were some times that it just felt like I think that was just a big piece for me. It was just like, it felt like something was just like someone just put a dagger in my chest. I mean, like that moment was like that. And since then, like, you know, I'm gonna try. But before that, like, I had to consistently be reminding myself. Before that, there was one time where there's a deer, and I'd like to say the deer hit me, but maybe not. But it totaled my car, and my mom, when she came up here, she saw the car, like, dropped to her knees, because she was just like, there was a really good chance of, if that was maybe not even a deer, but if someone hit me or something in that way, I might not be here today. And it was still a level of God's protection, because when that happened, like, people don't tell you, like, airbags and all that stuff, it smells like smoke, and people don't tell you all that. So for me, like, I thought the car was on fire. I was panicking. I couldn't get out the car. Like, I had to pull over. Someone finally helped me get out the car. Like, I mean, like, cops showed up, everything. Like, it was a whole ordeal. And, like, but my car, like, was absolutely totaled. I mean, and it was just one of those things of, like, if I was hit the wrong way, or if it was a car, like, I probably wouldn't be in here. And that was a really, really big piece for me, because God continued to protect me. And so, like, faith is a big part for me, because without faith, like, God is consistently, like, regardless of whatever, like, my big dreams would be whatever, like, it doesn't really, I mean, all that kind of stuff, like, I'm not living a story, or I'm not living in a way of, I'm not living my way. I'm trying my best to live His way, and every trial and tribulation that I've had, God has shown up on His timing. I think it's important, it's His timing. So I went through, not eating and felt like I was always behind. I went through that for years, and I had to ask the question, God, what do you want from me? And when the answer was me, it really put into perspective that, like, hey, like, God's gonna take care of me, He's gonna provide for me, but it's not necessarily something of, like, I don't need to try to, I can't do it on my own. I don't need to try to take care of things by myself. Like, I need help. People need people. But I think most importantly, I think through that time in my life, it was like, I need God. No matter how, maybe I am training the right kids and sharing the gospel, no matter how much I feel like I'm doing right, and even when I feel like there's going to be moments where I feel like I'm not doing anything wrong, which I know I'm definitely am, but, like, you feel like you kind of get this feel of yourself of, like, okay, like, you feel like you're doing whatever God tells you to do. You feel like you're being a good Christian. And I think God has called us to focus more on a relationship with Him. And I think I was doing at that time, I was doing a lot of things to be a good Christian in the eyes of others, but I wasn't opening my word. I wasn't focused on going to church. I wasn't focused on really being His child. And I think that moment He brought me back to just being His child, instead of being Teal, instead of being the trainer, instead of being the mentor, the thing, which all of those things I love to do, but I feel like I wore so many hats, and He was only calling me His child, and He was calling me His child, and that was, like, I felt like that was the only, like, requirement that I had. Like, we're not required, it's like, that was the only thing that I needed to be, was His child. All I felt like I was doing, and I was going to be taken care of just by doing that, when I felt like everything else I needed to do and be 10,000 other things for people, and try to live a life where I'm constantly giving, and in that moment, I feel like in those moments, God just wrapped me up and just said, hey, like, you're my child, and that's all I need from you. So those were very pivotal points in my faith, very pivotal in, like, just who I am today, and why I rely so much on my faith, and why I try to tell people how great Jesus is all the time, because I know what He's done for me. So that's what I love. That's who loves me, and so those things are just very important to me.